There is a secret god that the world has worshipped for thousands of years. Millions of people worship this god and have no clue. The Greeks and the Romans also worshipped this god, and this god is Saturn. Saturn mythology tells us that with the deposing of his father, Saturn became the ruler of the universe for untold ages, and he reigned with his sister, Ops, who also became his wife. It was prophesied that one day Saturn would lose power when one of his children would depose him. To prevent this from happening, each time Ops delivered a child, Saturn would immediately swallow it. When her sixth child, Jupiter, or Zeus, was born, Ops had him spirited away to the island of Crete. She then wrapped a stone in his swaddling clothes. Her deception was complete when Saturn swallowed it, thinking it was the child. When Jupiter was grown, he secured the job of cupbearer to his father. With the help of Gaia, his grandmother, Jupiter fed his father a potion that caused him to vomit up Jupiter's 5 siblings. Saturn has always had a negative, if not evil, significance. In ancient times it was called the Greater Malefic, which was opposed to Jupiter, the Greater Benefic. Saturn is esoterically associated with man's limitations, restrictions, death, and decay. His Greek name was Kronos, the ruler of time. Time being the main factor, inevitably leading to the death of mortals. Traditional representations of the Grim Reaper originate from the attributes of the god Saturn, who held the sickle with which he slain his father. And this right here is a representation of Kronos we saw in the film Clash of the Titans from 2012. In Greek mythology, Kronos was the leader and the youngest of the first generation of Titans, the divine descendants of Uranus, the sky, and Gaia, the earth. He overthrew his father and ruled during the mythological Golden Age until he was overthrown by his own son Zeus and imprisoned in Tartarus. As Father Time, Saturn keeps us locked into linear sequential time. It seems we never have enough time to get everything done, but this is only a myth in the physical existence because as divine souls, our lives are eternal. Saturn has also been associated with Satan, and this for numerous reasons. First, many authors argue that the word Satan is actually derived from the word Saturn. Second, Saturn is associated with the color black as well as Satan, and third, ancients considered Saturn to be the farthest planet from the sun, the latter being associated with the principle of good. So Saturn is consequently the celestial body that is the less exposed to the sun's divine light, and thus associated with the coldness of the principle of evil. Also the great god Pan, P-A-N, the horned deity, represented Saturn in ancient paganism. This half-man, half-goat creature is considered the ancestor of our modern depictions of Satan. From the book The Secret Teachings of All Ages, Manly P. Hall quotes, Pan was a composite creature, the upper part, with the exception of his horns, being human, and the lower part in the form of a goat. The pipes of Pan signify the natural harmony of the spheres, and the god himself is a symbol of Saturn, because this planet is enthroned in Capricorn, whose emblem happens to be a goat. Pan was the controlling spirit of the lower worlds, and he's been portrayed throughout history roaming through the forests, with his penis erect, drunk, and lascivious, frolicking with nymphs and piping his way through the wild. We might say he ruled the lower nature of man, its animal side, not unlike Satan itself. So despite acknowledging its association with evil, secret societies find the veneration of Saturn necessary to obtain illumination. It is this necessary counterpart of the principle of good. Masonic authors clearly associate Saturn with Satan. From the book Freemasonry and the Ancient Gods, J.S. Ward wrote, Saturn is the opposite to Jupiter. His symbol is the cross above the sign of Luna. He is the Satan, the tempter, or rather the tester. His function is to chastise and tame the unruly passions in primitive man. Probably the most extreme example of a secret society worshipping Saturn's evil principles would be the Fraternus Saturni. This occult organization is based in Germany and openly embodies the hidden side of Saturn worship. From the book Fire and Ice, The History, Structure, and Rituals of Germany's Most Influential Modern Magical Order, Stephen Flowers writes, The Fraternitas Saturni, FS, or the Brotherhood of Saturn, has become known to English readers through fragmentary descriptions, which emphasize the sensational, sex-magical aspects of this lodge's work, or else its darker, more satanic side. This is understandable in light of the fact that the FS is or was the most unabashedly Luciferian organization in the modern Western occult revival, and its practice of sexual occultism perhaps the most elaborately detailed of any such lodge. The Fraternitas Saturni represents a unique blend of astrological cosmology, neo-Gnostic demonology, sexual occultism, and Freemasonic organizational principles. This grand synthesis was originally the vision of one man, the longtime Grand Master of the Fraternitas Saturni, Gregor A. Gregorius. In many respects, the entire world has unknowingly been worshipping Saturn for thousands of years, and this cult has never stopped, and its rites are still present to this very day. Saturn was also dubbed the, quote, Lord of the Rings. It's also the reason why we exchange rings at weddings. It's also symbolized throughout history by putting halos over the heads of what we considered godly people. But nowadays we see the perversion of this idea. We see the halos put over the heads of people that aren't exactly godly. The ancient Hebrews represented Saturn with the six-pointed star, which later became the Star of David. And the Star of David itself has many other esoteric meanings as well. And the symbol is still found on Israel's flag, which really gives a whole new meaning to the six-pointed star, because when you really look at it, you'll realize that this star is all around us, in all different places in our society, and in entertainment. The six-pointed star symbol is still found on Israel's flag to this very day. There are many esoteric researchers that believe the name Israel is the combination of the names of ancient pagan deities, Isis, Ra, and El. Perhaps that's why we find this massive Illuminati pyramid with an all-seeing eye on top of the Supreme Court in Israel. I have no doubt there's a connection there with all of this. Semitic civilizations referred to the god Saturn as El, E-L, who is the supreme deity at the time. Also, he represented a black cube. The ancient name of Saturn was El. So it's the reason why those that were chosen by El, E-L, were called elites. Ra, of course, is the sun god. The sun god is the god that many of the elites worship. A lot of the hidden controllers, the shadow government, if you will. Many of these secret societies worship the sun, S-U-N. By extension of that, these are Luciferians. They worship the false light. Ra, the god of sun. It's also interesting to note that in Egyptian mythology, Isis is considered Saturn's eldest daughter. And this is from the book Prehistoric Nations, where it says, I am Isis, queen of this country. I was instructed by Mercury. No one can destroy the laws which I have established. I am the eldest daughter of Saturn, most ancient of the gods. Even our educational systems are a part of this Saturn indoctrination. Now, this comes to us from the Atlantean conspiracy, where it says, first you pay out your tuition to get into university, where they strip you of your intuition and give you an indoctrination. Famous occult researcher Jordan Maxwell says the true meaning of graduation is gradual indoctrination. And then some will receive a master's, or a MA, M-A, space, stars, S-T-A-R-S, a master's Masonic degree, quote-unquote, while wearing a Masonic mortarboard cap and a cult of Saturn black robe, to become an alumni or an illumni. Graduation means to increment or to retard a process. Once again, the true meaning of graduation is gradual indoctrination. So once you have spent 12 years being indoctrinated into this beast system, or this Saturn system, you graduate while wearing the black cube on top of your head. And speaking of El, E-L, it's also interesting to note that that is the name of the main character in a TV series called Stranger Things. The television series Stranger Things is filled with occult symbolism and ideas, and focuses greatly on the duality of everything, the upside down, as above so below. the interlocking pyramids, the six-pointed star. So here's another image of the North Pole of Saturn, the actual planet Saturn, and of course we see the hexagon there. The hexagon can also be seen as the cube. So keeping that in mind, maybe now it makes more sense why we see so many of these black cubes all around the world. We also see them in all forms of media, entertainment. Throughout history, the deity of Saturn, Satan, has been represented by a black cube. And just looking at America itself, there's a black cube in Santa Ana. Black cube in New York City. Another black cube in New York City. Now here's one in Denmark. Here's one in Australia. And you may have seen this picture right here before, where the black cube is a remnant of the ancient worship of El. Ancient Hebrews represented Saturn with the six-pointed star, as we said, which later became the Star of David. So there's even more symbolism that connects back to Saturn that you may not have been aware of. This is a picture from CERN. And typically Kali and Shiva are seen as very close. Many people also see them as representing the yin and the yang of creation. Kali is depicted as dancing on Shiva to illustrate the interaction between Shiva the silent, all-pervading force, and Kali the destroyer of time. Kali creates the cycles of time on the underlying structure of Shiva. Kali is also referred to as Mother Kali, which takes us back to that mother goddess worship that we see pervading every aspect of our entertainment and media and just reality in general these days. So you may remember some of these images from about a year ago or so now, where they were flashing all these images up on the Empire State Building in New York City of the mother goddess of Kali. So Saturn is the planet that's actually represented by Kali once again, and it makes sense because she is Mother Time. In later religion it became known as Kronos and was most widely known with Greco-Roman religions, pre-Roman Catholicism, and even some in the Christian period. Saturn and the other planets and stars have come a long way from their goddess associations. Saturn's mother goddess being the fiercest, most protective, most aware punisher of injustice, Kali. There's also massive amounts of color coding that go along with this as well. It's just another way we've all been kind of indoctrinated into this system. And Saturn itself is referred to as the purple planet. And we know that Saturn means a lot of things, but at the end of the day, Saturn is just another extension of Satan. So in keeping this in mind and the purple programming as well, you can see that all around us. Even here you have a daytime TV talk show, and the table is two rings. So again, we have the Saturn symbolism. Behind them you have the purple. Katy Perry, an Illuminati sellout or a satanic slave to the system. Purple, the all-seeing eye symbolism as well. Not to mention all the many times that she's represented the mother goddess in a lot of her performances. It's also interesting to note that the color purple originates from the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians considered Saturn their chief deity. This is also where we get the connection with purple and royalty. They had combined the dyes of red and blue and they created purple. And at the time it was only the royalty in the land that had access to this specific color. So this was the beginning of that connection between royalty and purple, the mixing of the red and the blue. And there's so much going on with the symbolism of the red and the blue itself. You can also consider this the Red Lodge and the Blue Lodge of Masonry. We see this very same idea playing out all the time before us. For instance, not long ago, just a few months ago, Hillary and George Soros funded what they called a purple revolution against Trump. Hillary was talking about how she was going to merge the red and the blue, the Republicans and the Democrats. And this is why we were told by the mainstream that she was continually wearing the color purple. She even wore the color purple during her concession speech. But now that we know a little bit more about the history, and we know that these people at the highest level are occultists, there's no doubt that there's a lot more behind the color purple than what they're telling us. So in closing, I wanted to leave you with this image right here, and let me explain. I went to church with a friend recently, and This is no knock on my friend or on their denomination or anything like that, but this is just something I wanted to show you as a very real example of how Saturn symbolism is really all around us and so few people can see it. And now from this video that you have a better understanding of what Saturn actually is, I thought this was very interesting that this was the main stage of my friend's church. So I myself departed from organized religion a very long time ago, but as I said, I just wanted to share this. I thought it was interesting. My jaw dropped when I walked into the sanctuary, and this is what I saw. So once again, the Saturn symbolism is all around us. Certainly not saying that people who run this church are worshiping Saturn. I mean, I really don't know, but I don't think so. This is just all around, and the symbol, I think, speaks for itself. It usually speaks volumes. So consider that if you will, and make of it what you will. So this subject of Saturn and Saturn symbolism, it gets really, really deep. I wanted to kind of cover a few of the main points just to get it across here in the video, but I have no doubt that a lot of you have a lot more you can add into this as far as history and symbolism. So I'm sure it's going to be a really active comment section. I definitely look forward to hearing your views and seeing what you think, and also seeing your shares. I used several resources to come up with this video, so I'm going to leave links below to all of my resources, and you can check these out for yourself to further this study. If I was to do a truly in-depth video on Saturn and symbolism and the history of it, it'd be like 3 hours long. So I wanted to hit some of the bullet points in this one, and I think we did it. And as always, I want to thank you for taking the time to check out my videos. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. You take care out there, everybody, alright? I'll talk to you real soon.